as brothers, I hope, even with each other, when we fall and make that mistake, that we there to help them up, not punching and knocking him back down. It's like, my man, I know where you've been, and I don't want you to fall no more, but I'm gonna help you get up. And so, yeah, it was beautiful to see the brothers coming up to me because they all share their stories. And when you hear these brothers express this, that's when I know, and I tell everyone, stop saying you alone and no one understands. That's a lie. I ran into 4 brothers today that feel that they were alone, and yet I met 3 others besides the one I just met who are just like them. And if I got them in one room together, they all will understand each other. So stop believing that lie. Stop saying that you're not alone, and there are some people who understand.
So excited to have you here. This is actually almost 2 years to the day we did this in New Jersey, right? We were in New Jersey, and I think what was great those 2 years ago, you were talking about, man, I'm thinking about writing a new book, and I'm, thinking about what it's going to be, and here we are 2 years later with the book, because I remember when we was talking about that. So the man at the moment demands. Just let's start there. What and why that title?
That's a good question. I titled it that, and I'll use myself as an example, and I know many of the brothers here can identify with me. So often, we're the wrong men in the moment. And as a result of that, we live and die with many regrets. And so I wrote this book to help men start experiencing fuller lives, and more so living in the moment instead of blowing those moments. Stop allowing our trauma to time travel and ruin the blessings in those moments. I was talking to a lady who called in for her longtime boyfriend at Sway in the morning today, and she was crying because she can't get him to open up. And I had to share with her, we've been conditioned as men to only operate in the 2 of these characteristics, and that's protecting and providing. And so if that's all we're here to do, our entire lives is to do instead of just be. And that's why it's so difficult for us to rest. That's why it's so difficult to truly express what we really feel in the moment that's not an emotion of strength, boldness, or aggression. But if our daughter needs us to be tender or sensitive, or if our capacity, we've given the world our best, and now we come home and our wife and family get the less, because we fear allowing ourselves to be open to those that we love, because we know what it feels like to be hurt and being passively dismissed when we do. But I tell brothers all the time, it's like, look, we have to fight the same way our sisters did. They refused to allow a society and a culture to define and confine them to a kitchen, where they couldn't go to certain schools, where they couldn't get a bank account without being married. But yet we've willingly allowed this world to hoodwink us into this false manhood. And we're more than just providers and protectors. And just because we're nurturers or gentlemen or compassionate or long-suffering doesn't make us feminine, it makes us human.
I'm just getting excited to get used to the claps, because we're going to do lots of clapping today. But no, you hit every response is going to hit the nail on the head, and that's why we're all here to learn and talk about comprehensive manhood. So walk us through, even coming up with that term. I remember when the first time I heard you say, because you hopefully people start researching and they'll do dissertations and there's gonna be comprehensive manhood, but you're the father of comprehensive manhood, right? In terms of just that term. How did you come to that conclusion of comprehensive manhood, that term, and then building on these characteristics of what it means to be comprehensive manhood? But you're the starter of that term. I heard Keir Gaines say it. I've heard Jay Barnett say it. All the brothers doing mental health work, right? They've said
Shout out to my brothers, Jay and Keir, solid brothers.
They've said comprehensive manhood, but we learned that from you. So,
well, the term came from my own life experiences when I realized, first and foremost, losing so many friends to who allow just this one adjective to define their entire existence, and that's masculinity or masculine. So when I studied that word, like all of us, we thought that, mic is going out, we thought that masculinity was a comprehensive definition of what it means to be a man. So when you heard the word masculinity or masculine, you just thought, okay, cool, this is all to my existence. But when I looked at the word and studied it, it's just a few attributes that are traditionally ascribed to men, such as strength, boldness, and aggression. And I knew I was bigger than that. You know, in my era in Detroit, the gold standard was the hyper-masculine black male. And so as a result of that, you had to pick. And so I lived between two popular gangs in my community, so there was no room for a boy who was gifted to play the guitar or a boy who desired to be a chef because he was called weak if he's in the kitchen learning how to cook. And that now the culinary arts field is dominated by men. But think of all the boys who could not become chefs because of the societal pressure at that time. And so studying that took me to the word thug. And as I shared in Battle Cry, the Most High told me an acronym for it, which means a traumatized human unable to grieve. And this is why we stay in fight or flight, because we can't release what happened. And so what is happening, we tend to blow that moment. How many intellectually gifted men we know who are incarcerated because they couldn't check their emotions in a moment? So when you allow a man, when he recognizes that he's more than masculine, I'm not saying relinquish your masculine attributes, because then now you're lacking in that area. What I'm saying is to embrace all that you were created to be. In martial arts, I had to learn that you couldn't just strike, you couldn't just elbow kick. You had to learn how to fight on the ground as well. So when Hoist Gracie came, he shattered this traditional martial arts concept or mentality where you can just stand and fight. Jiu-jitsu, or Brazilian jiu-jitsu, took those fighters to the ground and he defeated them easily. So the message was clear in the martial arts circle, is that you either evolve or be eliminated. And that's what I tell men today. It's time for us to evolve, or we will be eliminated. And so it's important that we become comprehensive man first for us. If we do it, which is honorable that we do it for our wives and our children, but what happens, men, when it doesn't feel like they're respecting our effort, or we impassively dismissed in the moment where we want to be transparent with them? We say, all right, cool, I'll go back to being that guy. And so when I had that epiphany with my wife, Nicole, she wasn't used to me expressing how I felt without anger, hitting the table, hit the refrigerator, yelling at the top of my voice. When I was able to articulate my emotions and my thoughts clearly, it shook her initially, and she yelled at me one time. We were in a parking lot of a grocery store and said, "You're the most emotional man I've ever met," and slammed the door and got out the car. So in these moments, men, is when we got to really lock in. It's like, okay, now I got to make a decision. Do I go back? Because I ain't no punk, right? Right? So do I go back? I can give you what you want. I can come back and be that father who's demonstrable, no patience, still dealing with his father wound unhealed, yelling at my daughter because her room is dirty and I'm missing the signs that she's probably being bullied. I'm passing on the harshness that my father gave to me. But in that moment in that car, I said, you know what? I'm not going back to emotional incarceration for you or anyone. I'm going to stand here and change because I deserve it, you deserve it, but I need to maximize my potential. And so that's why comprehensive manhood is the key in how it transformed me, because just being a masculine male wasn't enough. I had to be more than that to meet the moment.
Was it evolve or you say evolve or
Evolve.
evolve or be
Evolve or
eliminated?
be eliminated.
Whew.
And so as you see in the UFC, everything changed after that day. I think it was 1993. He shattered everything and was like, whoa, okay, we got to change. And many martial artists fought to stay traditional. They still tried to keep doing this stuff. Man, they was getting tapped out. Now everybody started learning jiu-jitsu. And so my hope is that brothers will say, okay, cool, I still can be masculine, I can still strike, kick, but let me add more to my game so that I can be complete in life.
In your book, all the books, but in this one, you see the thread of faith, right? And you're using different scriptures to tell stories and to show comprehensive manhood. Talk to us a little bit about your own faith journey and how that influenced this book and in your own life.
Well, yeah, the characteristics actually come from the one I learned from, Yahushua HaMashiach, or who the world calls Jesus the Messiah. He was the ultimate comprehensive man, and what I mean is that, so you have the 10 characteristics: the fighter, the provider, the leader, the lover, the nurturer, the gentleman, the friend, the husband, the father, and the son. Messiah embodied all of those. He was the fighter when he made a whip of cords and chased the money changers out the temple, Yah's sacred temple. He was the provider when he fed 5,000 people with just miraculously fed 5,000 people with just 2 fish and 5 loaves. He was the leader when he transformed humble fishermen into fishers of men. He was the nurturer when he would heal the sick, feed the hungry, cast out demons. He was the gentleman when he would sit and listen to women during a time when Hebrew men were frowned upon for doing so. And check this out, man, with no ulterior motives. He gave them the truth that could set them free. He was the friend, as it is written, that he laid his life down. There is no greater love than a friend who lays his life down, or a man who lays his life down for his friends. Then what he is the husband to us, his bride, the church. He is the Father, God incarnate, meaning he dwells among us. But yet, he's also the Son of the true and living God, who also had earthly parents and surrendered his authority to them so that he can keep the commandments. So, to me, he is the end-all, be-all for comprehensive manhood. And for me, I was lost, man. My grandfather was lynched in 1935, I believe, or 36. And I saw intergenerational trauma travel through my family. And I saw it firsthand with my mother, who literally had a nervous breakdown in front of me when I was in my 20s and I didn't know what to do. But I saw how the mind wasn't designed to hold all of this trauma. And then my brothers, I lost 2 brothers to murder. My best friend dropped dead of a heart attack on one of the jobs that I was contracted to do. And I could go on and on and on. But I didn't find peace until I surrendered to the Prince of Peace. I didn't understand what it truly meant to be a man until I saw the one who became one and then ascended back to heaven. And so, as he said, people do not believe because they don't see signs and wonders. So I don't proselytize, I don't push anything on anyone, as you can see in my books. But it's important that I be what I didn't see instead of complaining. And so I share that with men because I'm a living example that when you allow yourself to feel, give yourself the freedom to feel, you'll stop making so many mistakes that are detrimental to your life.
You can clap. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. Freedom to feel. That really resonated. You went into the intergenerational, trauma and just trauma as a whole. And even in the book, there was a part that was really interesting to me. You talked about, a lot of times when, depending on where you're from, you want to talk about how hard or thugged out or how violent your area, the more violent area you come from, it means something, right? Even for me, I'm originally from Connecticut, and usually when I went to college, people there's black people in Connecticut. I'm like, yo, you got to come to Hartford. If you come to Hartford, listen, you know what I'm saying? It's on and popping, right? Rolling stops. You don't stop at the stop sign. It's rolling stops, right? And the same thing here. You could be from different parts of the Bronx. Like if somebody say Woodlawn or Riverdale, you know what I'm saying? But if you like, oh, I'm from Soundview, like, you know what I'm saying? But people will, but we stand on that when, or like, even as, like, in our households, right? It could be like the more trauma, you celebrate that as opposed to be like, no, I came from a really good home and my real name is Clarence, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we all remember that piece, but it was like, oh, right? But we're really standing on being in more violent places. In the book, you talk about moving away from that and talk to us a little bit about that, yeah.
What's interesting, I'm in the Bronx, I'm thinking of KRS-One when he said, my last album cover, I was far from a lover. I'm holding a pistol, I was far from a lover. When I do presentations, I show, now I grew up in what I consider the golden era of hip hop. And so I show like maybe 10 album covers, and everyone was Mean Mug, Tough, Guns, you know? And we were conditioned to embrace this type of lifestyle like it's normal. But like I tell people all the time, trauma may be a part of the black experience, but it's not the black experience. And so working with kids as well, and I'm glad studies are finally coming out that if a child experiences significant trauma, they will exude, they have a greater chance of exuding ADHD symptoms. So for a child to hear a gunshot, I heard one psychotherapist say it's equivalent to you take a knife and cutting them on their arm. And so here it is, we glorify that instead of going outside like, man, who's shooting a gun in my community? Let's find out who this is and get them some counseling and therapy. If that doesn't work, you got to get out the community. But when you have an entire culture that promotes this, that glorifies at my time it was the thug life. My brother literally was a millionaire at just selling drugs, okay, like legitimately. I remember he had a lawsuit against the city and tricked $1 million off in Vegas. That's how rich he was. But when I pleaded with him and asked him how can he get out, that was his identity. But it stemmed from our father not being in our lives. And so when you trace all of this trauma back, it's intergenerational. And so you eventually learn to live with it as a safety mechanism for your own brain. Like, I have to stay in fight or flight because I got to go back to this community. I got to watch out for this guy that may rob me, instead of allowing yourself an opportunity to reset. And so many of us are still acting like our ancestors who literally had to live in fight or flight to exist. They weren't gathered, especially as men, to talk about this stuff. My father and them would go shoot pool and drink. That's it, and curse and talk about women. They couldn't have real introspective conversations like this. So it's truly a dishonor for us to continue to live in fight or flight when really we're free. And we need to fight like that. Yeah, there's systemic racism and other things in place, but as a people, what concerns me, especially as a fighter, we're so focused on what the enemy is doing that we miss practicing and developing what we need to do. It's like football or any competition. If I only watch film on my opponent, how will I get better? So I need to look to see what they can do with their strengths and their weaknesses. But if I don't look at my own strengths and weaknesses, I won't be that successful in that game. And so that's why it's important for us to finally first identify, wait a minute, trauma will not be a normal part of our experience, of the black experience. So we will experience it, but we shouldn't accept it as normal. When we see two brothers fight, that should bother us to a point where, look, let's try to get these brothers to reconcile. Why? Because my son and your son just saw this, and they never really see two men reconcile conflict. So what is that teaching them? When they grow up and all they see is movies with two brothers fighting and shooting each other and all the songs promote violence, what are they going to do? Then we wonder why the prisons are filled. And I tell the young kids I work with in juvie, you're worth $38,000 to them right now a year. And so we've been misguided and hoodwinked into believing that that is manhood, and it's not. And we have to, as men, first heal so that we can help. Other than that, we're going to perpetuate this problem.
Give me the clap. Come on, clap. There we go. Yeah. So I want to get into a few of the characteristics of a comprehensive man, and then a few more questions, then we're going to turn it over to the audience. There's several. All 10 are amazing, but I want to start with the nurturer, right? And you mentioned it a little bit, and in there you get into a lot of different aspects of being the nurturer, and so many times we don't even ascribe. That's not even a thought of like, as a man, I'm nurtured. That's solely something placed on the woman. So walk us through a little bit of that chapter and the idea of being a nurturer and men embracing that characteristic of being a comprehensive man.
Real talk, men are great nurturers. Some of the greatest coaches are great nurturers. Some of the greatest farmers, florists are nurturers. When I studied the Japanese art, Iaido, the sword art, my teacher or sensei at the time, he had plants around just like this. And it was a part of their culture for the warriors, especially the samurai, to keep the plants pruned. It was an art. I can't think of the name of it. It's a floral arranging art, and men did this. And so that what I studied from the samurai was that even when they kill you, they wanted to make sure their cut was as clean as possible so that you wouldn't suffer. So even on the battlefield, nurturing was a powerful attribute to have. Now, especially in the home, like if you can't tap into that, so many men want to please our wives in the bedroom. If you are not, I don't want to say emotionally intelligent, but if you're not tapped into your emotions, you will blow that moment every time. Like MMA, you think it's just about the ground and pound. And you know what I'm talking about, men, right? In all respect to my sisters, I'm just trying to talk to my brothers in a way we can relate. That's only one part of the fight. That's after you got the person down. There is no ground and pound and he's standing. That's foreplay for us. But if you can't get outside of yourself, your ego, and really connect with this woman on a deeper level, you don't even have to go to the ground to get her to climax. But you're not tapped in enough to your own emotions to meet her in that moment. As I use an analogy about the crayons. So as men, in school, do you remember the 8-box of crayons and the 64 box? You thought you was the man when you had the 8-box and then someone come in with the 64 like, dog, I got all the colors, dog. I can color the whole world right now. You can just, your stuff is 1D, mine is 3D. That's us with emotions, man. The Most High gave 64 to both of us, men and women. But they're used to embracing and expressing those. For us, we don't even like use all 8. We use just maybe 3 of them. And then we're frustrated in communication with our women when they're presenting a violet emotion and all we got is purple. When they have lime and we trying to get green and yellow together and working hard to try to meet the moment. And I'm like, babe, you don't see my effort. I'm trying to get you to understand this is what I'm trying to do. I just can't meet it. If we start using the colors that God has given us, now we can always meet the moment. We can always have the right color for that moment. Trust me, I failed perpetually in that area with my wife. We got married in 1998, and in 2015, we was considering separation. No infidelity, no abuse, no gambling issues, just years of pronouncements over each other, negative pronouncements that we weren't able to get past. And I could not communicate because I was still living from the broken boy inside of me. So the nurturer, when you master that characteristic, you not only know how to nurture others, but you know how to nurture yourself. And as I tell men, yeah, self-love may be hard for us to say, so I changed it. I want you to start saying self-maintenance. We all understand as men what it means to maintain something. And if we don't maintain it, our cars, our home, whatever, it's going to fall apart. That's the same thing with us. And just because our fathers didn't love themselves, it doesn't mean that we have to follow that path. And I love the name here, Sankofa. Does he have the bird here? You got to have the bird here, brother. There it is. Okay, look. So if you look at the bird, its feet are facing one direction with the head turning back. So Frederick Douglass says, it's easier to raise children than it is to repair broken men. That is accurate, but he did not mean that we should leave men broken. Sankofa, you're going forward, you go back to get yours. I had to do that with my dad. See, For me to find my healing, I had to go to him. And I tell men, you want to be comprehensive men, run to the areas in your life that pull out what they would say, unmasculine emotions. That was my dad. He was hardworking, strong, but at this point in his life, he was stricken with Parkinson's disease and couldn't move. But this was a time for me to finally have his attention. He had finally reached a place in life where he says, whoa, I'm about to die. All of us know that over 50, that when mortality sets, we say, things start changing. That's why you hear grandparents say, I'm enjoying raising my grandchildren more than my children, because it's a second opportunity to get it right. So what I'm saying is, the nurture, when you master that, I was able to forgive a man who was in the same city but wasn't actively in my life because my heart was open to hear his story. Always remember there's a cause and effect for every behavior. That helps you reconcile and forgive people a lot faster. And so I believe it's symbolic that we're here because it's very important that we keep going forward, but we don't leave those behind that are in need.
So another characteristic I want to get into is the husband, right? And even in there, you have a parts of like different sayings that we probably need to move away from. You know, happy wife, happy life,
Yes.
and some other ones, right? In terms of as we move to comprehensive manhood, right? Talk to us a little about that chapter and the husband.
Well, happy wife, happy life is a misleading mantra. Women know that now. They don't even say it anymore. It's like, okay, it was cool for a moment, but if you're not happy, I'm not happy. And that's why my wife and I now say happy spouses, happy houses. All right? And so much has happened, and this is why a lot of men don't want to get married. Well, it's many reasons, but one of the main reasons is that we feel that we truly are the lesser half. So I didn't realize, actually I was with Mel Robbins. You know her, she's solid, that's my girl. So I was on her podcast, and I told her that if I'm with my wife and someone says, this is your better half, subconsciously, what is that telling me about myself? And that hit her at the table. And she was like, I never really thought about that. What about the honey-do list? We don't have one for our wives. We get slapped, right? What you mean? I do everything anyway. Why not? And this is the journey to comprehensive manhood. You have to give our wives and the women in our lives the same grace we need, because they too have to unlearn what they've been deceived a man is. And so I wish Nicole was here because she could really talk about that, because it was a challenge for her. Because now, instead of me, if she does something that offends me, instead of me losing my cool, and then now I have to apologize to her and she was the one wrong, I hold it down. When the words coming at me, I'm like, I'm fighting, brothers. I'm moving out the way. No, I ain't losing this. I ain't losing. No, you trying to get me to act in my emotions, but I ain't losing. No, I'm chilling. No, I'm good. You're wrong. And it's all in love. I'm not trying to condemn anything, but we have to hit this head on. And we've been conditioned to pander to women. The songs, I give you the sun, the moon, the stars. You can't, dog. You can't. And so we find ourselves miserable for surrendering to the world's definition of a man. But when you start nurturing yourself, well, the husband, when you start truly desiring for your wife or giving your life for her as Christ would his church, but at the same time, honoring her the same way you would desire to be honored. That's been key for me. Even when my wife is wrong, I ain't getting out of line with him. I'm going to stay right here, and then if you break that line, that lineage, you the one going to get dealt with. And so that's the power of truly mastering the husband characteristic, is truly loving her as he would, and understanding that none of us get away with nothing. Okay, I'm not here to hold my wife accountable. Truthfully, no one can hold anyone accountable, because you can't be with anyone 24 hours a day. But you can hold someone responsible. And that's what I learned to do as a husband. And then lastly, the key thing I talk about as well, man, there's a lot in there, stop communicating over text messages. Like when Nicole and I see us going there, like, doo, doo, and I'm stuck in one place, parked for like 3 minutes communicating. I said, wait a minute, this is what middle schoolers and high schoolers do. So now we have a rule, past 2, if it's serious, don't text me no more. Okay, because this is not going to end well. I can't read this moment fully to really respect it the way it needs to be respected. And then, lastly, do not, the scripture said, brother, don't let the sun set on your wrath. Yeah, go down on your wrath. When Nicole and I agreed to believe that we would never ever try to hurt each other, that changed everything. So no matter if she said something or did something, I would always say, she didn't mean to do that. Something else is going on. And that allows me to forgive her quickly. When she says, I'm sorry, I don't say, I accept your apology. I say, I forgive you, so that she and I would know how serious this action is. And so as men, the key when you go back is truly to be comprehensive. Because, yes, sometimes you have to be stern, but more times you have to be understanding. And when you're used to navigating through all of those characteristics and emotions, that's when you'll truly find peace in your marriage.
I know that just blessed a lot of people. The book is going to be on sale afterwards for everybody who does not have the book. All right, and if you need to know somebody that need the book, it's going to sell afterwards too.
And I sign it, I personalize it as well.
Bam. Okay, last characteristic that I want to get to, because there's multiple ones, so we're not going to go through all of them, but I think it's important, because in the room, I know men in here who are fathers, right, and amazing dads. So talk to us a little about the father chapter and how that shows up in comprehensive manhood.
I would honestly love to hear, the men who are fathers, like what in fatherhood is you're really struggling with, because I could easily just go through what I wrote, but it's like, what are you dealing with, and how you feel that you need to master that characteristic. So I got 2 more questions, and then we go into to the audience, and I hope. Well, let me say this then.
Yeah.
Let me answer your question,
Okay.
all right, without trying to just deviate too much. Fatherhood is very important, and this is what we have to be careful of too as men, especially those of us who didn't grow up with the fathers that we desired to have. You'll find yourself trying to be someone who could never exist. And what I mean by that is, if I could have given my son 30 hours a day, I would have. But I found myself missing myself because I was overextending myself, trying to be something. Let me say, I was living from the father wound more so than living from a healed heart. When I started living from a healed heart, I still gave my son everything that I could, but when I couldn't, I just couldn't. And there was no more misplaced guilt. And a lot of good men, we go way above and beyond, and we wonder why we're worn out, because we're not leaving enough in the cup for ourselves. We must remember as fathers that we are too a part of the family, that we too need to be taken care of and provided for. And so one of the best things you can do as a father is to make sure you're taking care of yourself. Health-wise, a lot of us, and I had to be real with Mel Robbins on this. She asked, why don't men, regardless of ethnicity, really like going to the doctors? If my entire existence is based on doing and performance-based, why would I want to live longer just to do that?
Sheesh.
So if I can experience the life that I'm providing for others, I'm straight. I ride out, and when it's my time to go, I'm gone. And that's what many of us deal with. But truth be told, and this is how we get sidetracked, we miss that we're going to be the ones suffering, not really them. They will be hurting, but we'll be suffering with prostate cancer. So it's imperative for us that we understand self-maintenance and really grasp that concept. And I know it can be fearful at times, and this is another issue because we're programmed to not be fearless. That's the worst thing you can teach your son or your daughter because everyone in this room has something that they love that they're scared to lose. And when that something or someone is in jeopardy of getting taken away, fear rises. But yet, we must understand without that fear, there is no opportunity to be courageous. So it all goes hand in hand. So we teach our boys in the Cave of Adullam, and I teach Jason, my son, feel fear, but don't succumb to it. That's why it's written to do not fear the Most High, I think 365 times in the scriptures. And so fear not, and it's very important that we learn that, but at the same time, as husbands, that we have to, again, I tell men who are like on that verge of suicide and are apathetic, I tell them, you're not tired of living, my brother, you're tired of not living. And it's time for us just to fight for that. And as fathers, I can't tell you how many times I missed the moment, to the title of this book, I missed the moment not exuding the effort needed to model it to my son. So I would teach him work ethic, but not rest ethic. So now when we travel, I make him put the phone down. Hey, it's a nice pool right there. I want you to go lay out and chill. I remember one time in the Cave of Adullam, which is the martial arts training academy I lead if you're not familiar, and I was getting ready to teach class, Brandon, and the boys' fathers were sitting on stage while we were on the mats. And the Holy Spirit said, I want you to call the men on the mats. And when I looked at them, they were exhausted. Some of them were up there like this. You know how we do it. We act like we alert, paying attention, but we really sleep. And so I called the brothers on the mat. And then I asked them to lay down, let's practice Shalak meditation, which is a biblical form of meditation I created. So the boys laid back and the fathers laid back. While the fathers had laid back, within a matter of maybe 2 minutes, they were asleep. So me and my assistant walked over and whispered into each student's ear, sit up, sit up, sit up. And we asked them, when was the last time you seen your fathers do this? They said, never. They had never seen their fathers rest. And as a result of that, they're going to follow that same pattern. So now it's very important, again, when you start self-maintaining, you realize, look, I can't go all the time. No one is strong all the time. My son, I'm going to teach you how to work. My daughter, I'm going to teach you how to work, but I'm going to also teach you how to rest, and which is why I believe, and I close on this, Psalm 23, when it is written that Yahushua makes us lay down in green pastures. It's very important. It's deep to me that he says, make us. Why? Because it's difficult for us to be still and know that he is God.
So I had two more questions. I'm only going to do one more because I really want to open up the floor. So this is the last question I have is, in this season of your life, and so I follow, you've been following, right? So, I mean, you've been on, you just podcasts and radio shows, sharing the book. You know, you just run into people on the street. I think you ran into like 3 or 4 people just here in New York, and people just, and wanted to talk to you.
Ran into, what's the guy name? Yeah, Alec Baldwin today, and
yeah.
it's deep. This is real deep, brothers. Oh, man. I read through some of the comments, which I typically don't have time to do, but it's deep how we forget where we were. People were saying, I guess a lady got killed on the set of his or something. I said, man, if y'all knew where I came from, you wouldn't like me. You see? And so as brothers, I hope, even with each other, when we fall and make that mistake, that we there to help them up, not punching and knocking him back down. It's like, my man, I know where you've been, and I don't want you to fall no more, but I'm going to help you get up. And so, yeah, it was beautiful to see the brothers coming up to me because they all share their stories. In those moments, it feels like they only have like so many minutes with me, and I drop whatever I'm doing because I'm just a servant to hear. And when you hear these brothers express this, that's when I know, and I tell everyone, stop saying you alone and no one understands. That's a lie. I ran into 4 brothers today that feel that they were alone, and yet I met 3 besides the one I just met who are just like them. And if I got them in one room together, they all will understand each other. So stop believing that lie. Stop saying it. You're not alone, and there are some people who understand.
Now, in this season of your life, what kind of man is the moment demanding you to be?
Let me see. To be more pliable in the hands of Yah. And what I mean by that is I'm an introvert who extroverts well. All right. Just so all of y'all know that. My desire is to have a ranch with animals and be to myself. That's like a shepherd, you know? But yet, I'm constantly called like Maximus in Gladiator. Here it is at the opening scene. I talk about this in The Man the Moment Demands. He's rubbing his fingers through the wheatgrass just to escape the everyday battle of war. So I fight it externally, spiritually, because I'm here. When I walk out, attack's waiting for me. Remember, Satan don't check nobody that ain't in the game. So because I'm here and all of you here, you're like, I'm really upset at dude today. You see, so I have to deal with that, my own internal conflict, and then whatever else is in the natural. But when I surrender to him and understand it's not me, but who's in me, and that as I'm sitting here watching all of you coming in, my heart got full because it's not about me. I didn't create this stuff. I would have never wrote a book called Cry Like a Man in 2018 when everyone was just talking about being masculine. That was given to me. And so my prayer and what I need to be, and every book was like that. The title I had to be. Cry Like a Man, I had to break free from emotional incarceration. Battle Cry, I had to wage and win my inner battles. The Man the Moment Demands, I have to be the man that this moment demands, which is why I call you about this. How can we do something where I can pour into the communities? And so that is where I'm at now. It's just releasing all of that, and then also, you know, when you never had a family, you got to be careful because your family can become your idol. And so the Most High was pulling that away, showing me like, understand everything on a horizontal plane is fallible. It don't last. If, God forbid, I ever cheated on my wife or abused her or anything, she would leave. Regardless of no matter how much I pray or repent, whatever. My sons, and my daughter, if I was abusive to them, talking negative, that relationship would change. There's no such thing as unconditional love horizontally. The closest we'll get to that is the love of a good mother and maybe a dog. All right? Now, straight up, I got a great dog, but I share that to say in the process of the Most High showing me, like, look, I gave you your family. I gave you an amazing wife, 2 beautiful children, not for you to stop doing what I called you to do. I gave you that because it was a desire of yours and to help you be strong on this journey. But remember, I will tolerate no affinity or affection towards any idols. You must have all your worship in me. And he has to be my source of hope. And so to see something that you value and love so much that I have to now be like the disciples of Christ and still love it, but put this journey where it needs to be what he called me to do in the forefront. My family supports it. They happy I'm here. It's no issue there. It's just the wounds of when you grow up without it, and when you finally get it, you don't want to lose it. But that's where God has challenged me. He's like, look, I love you and I need you. I gave you that title. Now I need you to live it out. And being a man the moment demands, you got to evolve. You got to adapt. My son has his playoff game tonight. first one he's ever experienced. I don't know if he'll win or lose. The old Jason, who was living from an unhealed heart or just wounded, I would say, man, I'm a terrible dad. I should be there. I should have never planned this with Brandon. Now that I'm comprehensive and can process my emotions in real time, I'm like, no, this was planned well in advance before I knew he would make the playoffs. And if I could be there, I would be there. So instead of condemning myself, I called him on the way here and prayed over him and say, I'm here for you. You know why I'm here. He's like, yeah, Dad, help people and keep doing it. And when I come back, I give them all that I can. And so I appreciate you asking, and all of you, if you can pray for me, that's my thing. It's really just allowing him to fully have access to my vessel. The demonic world, they get it. You understand demon possession. See, they know that these demons and Satanists and Luciferians know that these spirits need a body to move throughout this earth. But for some reason, those of us who follow the Most High, we don't think that his Holy Spirit needs our bodies. The Bible says that he doesn't dwell in temples made by man anymore. He dwells in us. And so if he doesn't have a vessel, and if it's so few of us, that's why he pursues me the way he does. He's like, look, my man, I need you because you're about to talk to 150 people in here. And possibly 10 of them could do this. And then, and so I ask that you pray for me in that area. I truly appreciate it. And I just want to be the man he wants me to be in every moment.
Awesome. I love it.
First and foremost, thank you, Jason, very much. I mean, truly, thank you. And thank you, Brandon, for having this. This is fantastic. I would like to ask, we speak a lot in forums like this about the relationship between man and woman and father and children in terms of being a man. Can you speak a little bit to man and what it's like for us to be brothers to each other and how we can evolve that relationship? And I believe there's a lot of strength in community building from that vantage point.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up because I believe it was Battle Cry. I talked about the importance of camaraderie. Again, when we look at suffering in silence as a code of honor, and we look at individuality as isolation, that's when the brotherhood is broken down. It is written that iron sharpens iron, so as one man sharpens another. All right. That word man is not for human. It literally means male, okay? The key thing is that many of us, we're not sharpening each other, we're polishing each other. So there's no blade on our sword when sin comes or we're tempted to do something stupid and we can't cut it away. We love looking good. We draw it out. We're shiny, but we have no effect when something is in front of us that we need to cut down. So the brotherhood needs to be more of holding each other responsible in every aspect of manhood. In the Cave of Adullam, I'm asked to do a men's group for the cave. And so I'm going to pilot it soon. And so we have what's called cave check-ins for our students that parents fill out. It's a 3-minute survey to let us know that what we're teaching them in the cave, they're actually doing in life. They're going to do well when you're in our gym. I want to see if you're doing well in school, at home, at community, at church, etc. I share that. Could you imagine if I had a men's Cave of Adullam and our wives and children could fill out the check-in? See, that way we can be held responsible, but what's even deeper, you get in a room like this full of men and we can dive deep, we can get to the cause and effect of why you're doing those things. Camaraderie is crucial. I thought of the Cave of Adullam because David, when he was running from King Saul was trying to kill him, he ran to the Cave of Adullam, which was in Israel. This wasn't just a random cave, by the way, either. David's family found out he was there, and they came to him. At first glance, you would say, well, wait a minute, maybe they just trained how to fight in there and came out, and they were mighty men of valor. No, these men were written as being in debt, distressed and discontented, gathered unto David, and he became their leader. They already was wrecking everybody. David already slew the Philistines, so they wasn't in there training how to fight. This cave was a refuge. It was a safe space for men who was broken to strengthen each other and be healed. That's how important camaraderie is for us as men. What Satan does, he isolates you, saying you're alone. No one understands. Your wife doesn't understand. You just called your boy and he was real short with you. He really couldn't hear what you was going through. That's when you got to know how to process your emotions. Emotions will lead you astray more than keep you on the path. As David said, he says, I have weaned my soul as a mother weans his child from her breast. Quieted and calm is my soul within me. When you're a slave to your emotions, you can be ruled by everything. And so when you have a group of men around you who understand that and live by that, you become stronger individually, and then in your family, and then in the camaraderie. So that's the importance of manhood and camaraderie. And lastly, you gotta seek it, brothers. If it's just one or two brothers, make sure you go out with them at least once a week. A study just came out and said that men must have at least one hang night a week for our own mental health. Our sisters understand, they'll go on a girls' trip, no problem. But we fight like we gotta stay and guard the house like somebody gonna come and raid the crib. Like, no, go ahead, baby. I gotta watch this. I gotta make sure everything's straight here. Listen, man, that's fight or flight. You're not even enjoying life. Get a brother, go to the game. Go anywhere where you can get out. I bought bikes so me and my boys, we can ride out. And we just ride. I don't want a motor. I want to go slow. I want to enjoy the breeze. I don't want no music on. I don't need to hear anything. I need to hear the birds, the wind blowing through my helmet. So again, when you do that, man, now you start not only like appreciating life, but fully living it.
Thank you guys for putting this together. I have basically 3 questions, so you can kind of pick which one.
My memory ain't that good, brother. You better you better pick one.
In reading your book, you talk a lot about different losses that you've had. I wanted to know, how do you process and handle just the concept of survivor's guilt, of feeling like, okay, these people I really care for, they're gone, but I'm still here. That's one. And the second question was just regarding just the husbands. When you mentioned about the husbands and you were talking about how, like as a husband,
Keep the mic to your mouth,
Oh.
brother. There you go.
You're talking about husbands and how when we get, like when you go to church or something of that nature and you're asking for help, that it tends to be a little bit more women-centric, in a sense
Asking the Most High for help, you mean?
No, just as far as like, when you're talking like to your pastor, your, different people, it tends to be a little bit more women-centric, where the concept is your fault, your responsibility, that type
Oh, I
of thing.
got you. Like in marriage counseling, it
Yes,
seems like the
yes.
focus is always on the wife and you're always wrong.
That is correct.
Okay. All right, let me just do those two.
Wait, that's the last one. Which
I'm
is
going to
really
forget
important.
it. I done forgot
Last
number
one's
one now.
Okay.
You see where we going? If you keep going, I'm going to keep forgetting.
Okay.
So, all right, number one, I've never had survivor's guilt with all the tragedies I had. My struggle was allowing myself time to grieve those losses. When I started psychotherapy, intense psychotherapy, I learned the benefit in being still and then really crying and lamenting a loss. So, you'll have a holiday party and my mother just died in April and here comes Christmas. I used to smile just to get along so I wouldn't spoil the mood of the room. I stopped doing that. I would, if I'm somber or depressed, I'm gonna see who really my friend in that room. I'm not conforming no more to that. If I'm hurting, I'm gonna honor that and respect that. I had to tell my brothers who weren't used to crying, one of my friends couldn't even cry over his grandmother's funeral, at his grandmother's funeral. And he says, Jay, I don't know what's wrong with me. And as I listened to her obituary being read, I said, my brother, this was a pillar in your family. She deserved your tears. In that moment, with me giving him permission to grieve, he broke down. See, a lot of times we just need permission to be human. First, an empathetic ear, a touch. I put my hand on a man's shoulder. I receive your sadness. your grief right now, your anger, your fears, it's accepted here. That right there gives a man the freedom to be human, and then he can release it. The second, to your second question about, I guess, was it about my marriage counseling? It seemed to be focused more on my wife than me. Yeah, that I was the problem, and nothing was wrong with her. And what is your question? Like, how did I get past that? Uh, It is. Okay, let me tell you. Yeah, I don't want to be the bullseye in this entire 2-hour discussion. I have amazing psychotherapists, a couple who take great care of me and my wife, major. In a recent session, it felt like the bullseye was on me. And what's funny, his wife she's always on my side and he on the co-side. But this time, Ellie was quiet and it just felt like I wasn't being heard. This is the benefit again of being emotionally stable and a verbal processor. You don't have to sit there and take nothing. Speak it in a way where it's received respectfully, but speak it. And I simply said, I feel like I'm being ignored here. Not in the last 30 minutes has anything been mentioned about what she did wrong. This is not good for me. There was nothing wrong with me saying that, and my psychotherapist apologized. Pastors, I was told by pastors that they've been trained to cater to the wife because it's easier to get this session over with if you put everything on the man, because he's not going to say anything. But as we see, it never helped the marriages. The divorce rate is higher than it's ever been. And so, again, gentlemen, when you go through the steps and the exercises in this book, start slowly practicing speaking up with control, articulating what you're feeling, because if those thoughts don't come out, they'll become toxic. You got to release them in a way where it can be received. Again, always put yourself in a position to win and not lose. But don't ever hoard what you're feeling in those moments.
I'm gonna come in the back. Next over here.
So before I ask my question, I just want to take a moment to say thank you so much. In the last 2 years, when I actually first came across you, really changed the trajectory of my life. I left the job where I was having a high-paying job. I started working at the Boys and Girls Club because I've always had an affinity to be there for the youth and the environment and be that person because of the traumas that I felt and everything that's going on there. So I want to thank you so much for all of that. I really appreciate you for everything, and it's a real honor to be here.
Thank you, brother.
No, thank you. My main question is this, right? I mean, luckily, all the men in here, we have you, right? So when you started this journey and started going through all this, who did you have, and what helped you make it through to get to where you are now?
That's a very good question. Before I even got on the journey to comprehensive manhood, I had several pastors, several mentors, men who were like brothers to me as well. But the journey to comprehensive manhood at times can feel alone. Well, for me, it definitely was because it was unheard of. So it's always lonely for the first person who is laying the path. Then once the path is laid, you can join together with more brothers like, what is this brother doing? Let me try this. So for me, the developmental stages of me, especially in Christ, and then my first early years of being married, I had great pastors in my life and mentors. But as I started journeying into comprehensive manhood, it wasn't a concept accepted by many. And so sometimes you got to go alone to develop something for many people. And so that journey, I believe, was enforced loneliness by the Most High, where I could draw to him and get everything I needed from him. And then once I was equipped with everything needed to share, that's when he opened up the door. So very good question, brother. Thank you.
Yes, Jason, my name is Douglas Reed.
I don't know you, man. I don't know who you are.
Been following you around the country for a couple of years now. But what I wanted to ask you, in relationship to young boys you dealt with, men of all generations. What are some of those generational gaps that you think we need to work on? Or can you identify the gaps in the men that you have worked with?
When you say gaps, could you expound on that a little more?
The gaps, well, let's say the miscommunication.
Expound more. What do you mean
As far as
miscommunication?
the communication for us to understand each other at each stage in our lives.
All right, so I think I know what you're talking about, Doug. So with my son, one thing as a father, and I share this too in my book, that we got to put the ego aside. I can't be all things to my son as he continues to grow. Eventually, I'm just going to be dad. So I've strategically placed men in his life that fill those gaps that you're talking about. I got an older man, I got a man that's a little younger than me, then I got another man that's a lot younger than him. So he has a big brother, an older brother, an uncle, and he actually has a granddad as well. And so a lot of times we try to be the end-all, be-all, and it doesn't work. I remember just recently my son was in the car with me, and a friend was going through something heavy. He just lost his mother. And he looked at my son. He says, you know what's interesting, little Jay? He said, yes, sir. He says, you're standing too close to see how big your father really is. And I almost broke down crying because it's not that he intends to not really like be around dad a lot, but as they grow older, it's a part of their development. They have to develop their peer groups. So I would be unwise if I didn't strategically plant other men around him where he can go to them, get different advice, same principles. And so that's how I filled those gaps in my son's life. Same thing with mothers who are single mothers or single dads. I allow the mothers to be mom by being the father figure in the Cave of Adullam, and I allow the dads to be dad, to have some other women who are there who are mothers to mother their own sons. And so we have to be willing to allow, again, that comes to your point about camaraderie and community, to start going back to how it used to be. And finding someone, you just don't let anyone around your child. But if you got a relationship with someone, and if you would die for them, they should be in your children's lives. Yeah. And so you can have those voids filled where they may not talk to you, but they're still talking to you.
Just want to say, appreciate you all. This is a lovely event. Shout out to Sankofa and shout out to you two brothers here and everyone in the room. My name is George Nunez, and I'm the founder and CEO of Bronx Tech Hub. I have two quick questions for you. My first question is, how do you deal with lack of support from family and friends? And the reason why I say that is because there was a line from Jadakiss, and he said a while back, he was like, while my buzz in LA ain't like it is in New York, mentioning like why people that I just met or I just come across show me more support than the people I grew up with. How do you navigate that? And then my second question is, how do you navigate the politics? I'm in the business space. I deal with politicians, and I don't really like politics because I feel like things don't really get done. So how would you navigate politics throughout your life?
Let me work my way back. When you say politics, what do you mean?
Like leveraging politics to bring resources to your area, to your community, to even get funding and things of that sort.
All right, for me personally, I delegate that piece. See, I rather do what I'm really great at, and so I find people who are great at that to do that side of our nonprofit, because we have to do that as well. You understand? So if you're trying to create, and it seems like you're an entrepreneur, right, brother? Sure. You have to learn how to delegate. First, find the person that can yoke with you, who is willing to go, like, believes in what you're doing, but yet, hey, I'm gifted at this. This isn't your strength, but I can knock this out for us. That's when you need to do that. Now, if you're still alone and it's just you, the key thing in my mentality when we were starting our nonprofit, I never put its existence in the hands of anyone. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? I knew who had given me the union in the Cave of Adullam. I don't care about none of the funding. We literally, when we lost funding, when Obama took office, we had just got a grant for mentoring, and he had moved the mentoring department out of education, so we lost that grant. We had to leave our office office in this building, I didn't look back, brother. I'm packing up, moving, because that's God's responsibility. I'm just a servant. So in order for us to be here, you're going to have to provide. You see, like when Moses was running towards the Red Sea, he didn't split the sea. He could have split it a long time ago. He waited till Moses got there. I don't worry about none of that. So as we was walking out, I'm going to encourage you with this story. The general manager of the building comes out and stops us. He says, "Where are you going?" I told him we can't afford to be here and I don't want to be in debt. Do you know he let us stay there until we got another grant? So I'm saying don't allow anyone to have that type of power over you. All right, and then to your first question, I'm trying to remember, what was it again?
How do you navigate lack of support from family and friends when people that you just met should support you more?
Yeah, that can be very hurtful. But again, who sent you? Why are you doing what you do? What you're doing should be so much bigger than you. The Cave of Adullam, as you know, we have an award-winning documentary that was executive produced by Lawrence Fishburne. Do you know I had a pastor tell me don't do that when I was starting it? Didn't have support from nonprofits in the city of Detroit either when we started. Now look what's happening. I didn't get mad at them. I understood. They didn't believe. The Messiah says only is a prophet without honor in his own home and hometown. This is nothing new, my brother. So again, allow yourself to feel those emotions, because that's real because it hurts. You're going to go to anger because that's the surface. That's right there. But as in the earthquake of emotions exercise in my book, I compare the anger emotion to the surface emotion, which is at the epicenter. When you learn how to express the emotions where the earthquake starts at the hypocenter, you can stop it from quaking everything in your life that matters. So reflect on what you're feeling, release anything that can't benefit you so that you can reset. And you got to constantly do that over and over, especially as an entrepreneur, because people are not going to believe in you until you do something with it. It's just human nature, brother. You got it? Keep it up, brother. I'm proud of you, all right?
How y'all doing? My name is Jean Messero. I'm a psychotherapist.
Where is this Barry White voice coming from? Oh, there you go.
I'm right here.
What's up, brother? I see
How you doing?
Yes, sir.
I'm a psychotherapist based in New York and New Jersey.
Thank you for what you do, brother. Give it up for my brother.
Thank you. So yeah, first off, as like everyone, I'm assuming everyone in this room, I'm highly inspired by the work that both of you guys are doing. So I just want to acknowledge that and thank you for really just paving the way, right? Like, it makes my job that much easier. Brandon, I know we've connected before on multiple occasions, but I think even just saluting you for everything you're doing on the content side, education. I know I came from education too, so just acknowledging that and the important work you're doing with like kids, all that it just keeps me going, right? Like, you guys are. I really want to emphasize it because you guys are like lights to this generation and generations to come, and especially with the content. It's like documented, so future, like my son, his daughters, people for years to come will see this and all the work that you're doing. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and I really appreciate you guys for what you do.
Thank you, brother. That means a lot. Thank you.
No, of course. And along with that, my one question was, so I was watching your interview with Lecrae recently, and you spoke on, it actually kind of made me emotional because, so I have a 1.5-year-old, and you spoke on, I believe you bought a building, and there was a situation where it sounded like a setup, like, some people that I don't know what their intentions were, but I remember you took measures to defend yourself. You sent your son back in the building, and you were saying that in that moment you didn't know if that was the last time you were going to see him. And thankfully, you made it home safe. And I know you mentioned you processed your emotions, or you released your emotions when you got home with your wife. But I'm curious about that conversation with your son, right? Like, I think about my mortality way more since having a son. I take every legal measure to protect myself, but there's still that thought that, like, there's a possibility that you may not make it home, right? And like, how do you cope with those feelings, but also like, how do you have that conversation? I know you said like family sometimes can become similar to an idol, and that fear of like potentially losing it. So like, how do you? Yeah, two-part question. How do you process that for yourself? But also like, how do you have that? Or what was that conversation with your son and your family?
Um, that's a very good question, and even thinking of that situation still brings chills to me because literally looking at, for those of you who don't know, we had just bought a building for our nonprofit in Detroit. I wasn't familiar with the area, but we had a basketball gym at the top floor of a building. And before we was going to convert it into the martial arts gym for the Cave of Adullam, I would let my son go and shoot hoops up there. This one day, I think it was a Saturday, we go in, he has fun shooting around, and we're coming out, and I'm not paying attention. And as I'm locking the door, and what's interesting, I have some of this on video as well, because of my trauma, I videoed myself. We didn't have an alarm. I wanted to make sure that the door was locked, so I would video myself to make sure I locked the door. So when I got home, I said, did I lock the door? Oh, I guess I did lock the door, you know? It's like when the garage is closed and you looking back before you close the door, make sure nobody roll under and come in the crib. And so as I'm doing that, a young man says, they're trying to kill me. And I look to my left, I say, who trying to kill you? He said, they come around the corner. It's a Suburban coming. So at that moment, I draw my firearm and I put at the time, you know, they were lasers, there was no red dots. I put that on him. And I looked at my son. I'm like, whoa, he's vulnerable right now. And that's the truest definition of the word. While I'm here, let me touch on that. We're not trying to tell you as men to be vulnerable. People say that, like, we need you to be more vulnerable. No, you never should want to be vulnerable. That means you're at risk of harm or death. You want to be emotionally open and transparent. In that moment, my son was vulnerable. So I had to rush him into the building, say, hey, because I've been in some serious situations, okay? So I knew, people said, why wouldn't you just get in the car? Well, they coming and they got guns. Now my son in the car, rather than just shoot me than him. So I told him to run to the back of the building just in case they start shooting. If they got an AK-47, it may go through the bricks, but it shouldn't be able to hit him at the back of the building. Imagine looking at your son in this narrow glass and you see the fear in his face because he doesn't know what's going on. And I got to be emotionally stable enough to say, it's all good, man. Just run to the back. I'll see you in a minute. The car comes around. I get in the Weaver stance with my gun leaning against my truck. And then the car turns back around the other way. The gentleman to my right was on the phone the whole time. Now my street senses is starting to kick in a little more. I'm like, if they're trying to kill you, why are you still here on the phone? And then why did they turn away when they saw me? You're on the phone with them. You let them know I had a gun into a board. They were trying to carjack me. The way I had to release it, because typically, again, brothers, if you're not used to expressing and releasing what you're feeling and what you've been through, you're going to keep going through it, except it's going to look different. So instead of you being in that moment, it may be your wife may say something that shouldn't trigger intense anger, but it does. When I got home, I sat in the kitchen. My wife knew something was wrong. She says, you okay? I said, no, I'm not. I need a moment to release what just happened. The fear, like you talked about with your son, I had to release that in that moment. And I cried for a moment in that chair because that was a heavy moment because I thought I would lose my son. Now, to your point, I don't walk with that though, brother. That's the benefit as a psychotherapist, and this is why I respect all therapists, because you too need a therapist. The weight, I'm gonna say this because they can't say this to us. When a therapist is constantly pouring into you, and you have some things that you should be applying, give them a break if you can. If you're not on the verge of hurting yourself or hurting someone or a mental breakdown, and you just feel like you just want to dump on somebody, start trying to put some things into practice that they've taught you. So many therapists are on the edge themselves. And as a people, we can't always just keep absorbing like we do as human beings natural resources until they're gone. So let's give them some grace as well. Let's give them another hand. Every therapist in here, a hand. So now, I appreciate your transparency, brother, but I had to learn how to let that go because I'm still fighting certain things as well, and if I keep stacking it like Tetris, I'm gonna lose. So now when things stack, like something that make me scared I'm gonna lose my son, I remove it. Like, wait a minute, no. Nothing's gonna happen just because my best friend died, just because my brothers was murdered, just because this happened doesn't mean that that's gonna happen. Just adversity is a great teacher, but it's not meant to be our life story. And so in the second part, you said, how did I help my son process? Thankfully, he was so young, he didn't really understand what was going on. He didn't know how dangerous that situation was. But as in before the game today, the first question I asked him, are you nervous? Because I know he is. So I wanted to give him the freedom to feel. I don't want him to go into the game like, I'm gonna just hold that in. Like, nah, your jump shot gonna be tight. Are you nervous? Yes, Dad, I'm nervous. You know you should be. I used to be nervous. I remember when I played this, and that. Now let's move through it. Let's call it out. Say it again. I'm nervous. I'm nervous. Yeah, you nervous? You're nervous? You're nervous now? Not as much. Keep yelling it out and get it out you so you can be free when you play. And so that's how we help our boys, whatever they're going through. And then lastly, sometimes as your son get older, many of you here with teenage sons, they're going to stop talking. Don't take it personal. They got their own issues. And real talk, their lives are much harder than ours were at their age. If I had social media, I wouldn't be here right now. If I was 16 with an iPhone, I wouldn't be here right now. I wouldn't. So, and we have to stop saying things like, when they're tired at school or having a bad day, I used to say things like, wait till you get a real job. I've just done to them what I hate being done to me. I impassively dismiss their struggle and their emotions, and then we wonder why they no longer talk to us. Say, wow, that's pretty much like a job, son. That's 8 hours, dog. Dang, did you get paid today? And make a joke out of it. And then understand, lastly, for fathers, especially like someone like you, I can tell you embrace fatherhood. Be careful not to make it about perfection. Always keep it about your presence. It's a big difference between the two. When my son is cut off, he doesn't want to talk, I just lay next to him if he welcomes me in his space. I just want him to know that I love him so much that anything in this world will be put on hold for you. Another great thing I do with my son, and I did it a few times with my daughter because she's much older, I take a walk with him. Leave the phones at home and just walk. It's amazing how much you get to talk about and things that come up when you allow that time, because you know if you're going to walk a mile, you're going to be a minute. And no phones, now I can really hear my son's heart. And then for him to say, man, my dad stopped the world for me. We're not riding a bike, we're not running, we're literally walking 1 mile around this block because he's so into me that everything has to stop for him. Your presence, not perfection. When we get that, that's when, that bond will be where it needs to be. Thank you for that question, brother. That was really good.
Hi. Sorry. Thanks. I'm right here.
Thanks,
Thanks.
brother.
I had the pleasure of finishing your book right before I came, so it was really insightful. I appreciate it. I'm a divorced dad. I've gone through the family court system, and I'm also an attorney. I was a divorce attorney before I did a transition. One of the things that I didn't realize is how much the family court system grind men out. And I'm lucky. I have community. I have some resources. I have men in my life who checked on me every single day to make sure I was in a healthy place. But it still got really, really dark. There'd been a time during a period of that where I had to go a year without seeing my daughter. And I understood then that I live by the altruism of a system that doesn't necessarily appreciate me. When I read your book, I had to ask myself, right, like, if being the man that the moment demands, but what if it isn't, the system isn't necessarily ready for that kind of human being? I am not exactly sure if, I would have survived. A lot of you talk about suicide in the book. A good chunk, maybe 30, 40, 50% of men commit suicide during that process. Nobody, it doesn't seem as if this comprehensive man is necessarily valued. And if it were to be valued, it would be a more systemic approach, not an approach targeted only at men, but people around them. I love through the conversations, I watched a bunch of videos, I read the books, and I love the relationship that you articulate between you and your wife. But I would imagine that all men don't feel that it's safe in their relationships to do that, to be that vulnerable with anyone else.
Not vulnerable, emotionally
emotionally
open, transparent.
Emotionally transparent with another party. That may be seen as a weakness. And you could say, well, you have to begin to change the hearts and minds, but some of those hearts and minds have hardened it and made it really complicated to do things, and maybe people aren't ready to really address your needs as a man. So I guess the question that I'm asking is, how do you get communal support for being the man that the moment demands?
When you're the man the moment demands, it don't matter what type of support you get or not. You're going to do what you got to do. So, my brother, regardless, even the Messiah, his time, they wasn't ready for his message. That's why he got killed. And I'm very empathetic because I have a few friends who went through a similar situation as you did. And they all admitted if they were more emotionally open, meaning if society could see that we're more than stoic. See, if we continue to wear a superhero costume, why are we getting mad when people come up to us to save the world? See, we have to take ownership of what we allow to happen. And now you got to fight for it. I couldn't imagine, brother, not seeing any of my children longer than a week. A year would put me in a deep depression. So I'm thankful that you made it through, and I'm thankful for the brothers that undergirded you and supported you during that time. But I want you to shift your mentality from others to you, what you need. People ain't going to see it. They ain't going to believe it. Some people are shocked that I'm even in this position. If I would have let what they thought or didn't think, the lack of support I had, stop me or affect me in a way where I couldn't move forward, there wouldn't be no man the moment demands. It wouldn't be no battle cry. It wouldn't be no Cry Like a Man. Wouldn't be no award-winning Cave of Adullam documentary film. Wouldn't be the union nonprofit organization that has reached over 17,000 youth. Wouldn't be 26 years of marriage in. I couldn't stand losing two brothers. I watched my father suffer from Parkinson's and my mother die of dementia. To be the man the moment demands, you got to fight. You can't expect anyone to give you nothing, especially in a time where they don't respect us the way we feel, don't value it. Don't conform to it. Be not conformed to the ways of this world. Be transformed so that you will know the will of God. See, if your mind isn't renewed and you're constantly stuck because you're there because you're still angry, which is understandable, my brother. I can see it in your face. But you got to release it so that you can reset. If you can't reset and you're still holding that, you're going to constantly blame everyone. And I'm not saying no one's to blame, because I know there are many to blame for that situation and the way you were treated. What I'm saying is, don't allow that situation to become your life. I praise y'all that you got out of that. And now I'm going to be praying for your healing. But you got to fight. And fight for yourself and stop looking at everyone else. What they didn't do and what they doing. We got to lock in. And this is also for our women too, but lock in, my brother. And I'll be praying for you. And please come up to me afterwards as well, okay? And I hope that helps you, okay? And real quick, brother, can you create something to help men go through what you've been through? There's a lot of men going through that right now that need your knowledge. And you read the book. If you're a comprehensive man that is a lawyer and an advisor, and you helping him not only deal with the legality, but what he's dealing with internally, man, you got something that needs to be scaled across this world. So don't allow, like, I tell people to write down your complaints because you'll be surprised that's what you're called to solve. So write that down. You didn't go through that for no reason, brother. It doesn't exist. Create it. Don't complain. Create it. That's why the scripture says, do everything without a spirit of complaining because it holds us back. Messiah says, he who puts his hand to the plow and look back is unfit for the kingdom. But you got to understand, a plow, its progress is going forward, but you can't see the progress until you look back. What he's saying is if you got your hands on the plow and you keep looking back, you're more concerned about what you did than what needs to be done. So focus on what needs to be done and watch you start living a life of purpose.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Edwin Baroa. I'm an assistant principal out here in the Bronx. All right, I'm an assistant principal in a high school in Soundview. I was born and raised in the Bronx. So I just wanted to take this time because I don't think you and I, brother, are going to get a chance because there's 150 people that want to talk to you. But I want to give you your flowers, all right? I personally got emotionally out of incarceration last summer. Not from a jail, but emotionally out of incarceration because I was able to finally share with my wife emotions that I couldn't share before. I think your books, especially Battle Cry, and this one was I'm not done reading. You know, you actually commented on my post where you developed the 21st century Renaissance man. And that's what we're trying to build. And that's what I see here because you technically are giving us all the tools in our toolkit to be better prepared and better enabled to travel in the world. You know, it got up to a point where, for myself, I'm a proud Freemason. And yesterday, I actually took some of the values of your book and just started my own little book club. You know, and it was impromptu, but it was a conversation that my brothers needed because, you know, in the Bronx, especially, like for me, I'm Dominican, 100% Dominican, but it's in a Dominican household, the conversation of speaking about your feelings is always set aside, you know? And it's one of those that it wasn't until I got to adulthood or I got into certain spaces where I felt comfortable shedding that skin, you know? So I want to thank you, brother, for that because, like, you taught me a lot about myself, and also with some of your stories, we can relate. My dad passed away due to dementia. My wife and I, we had about 5 miscarriages. So I understand when you did that intimate moment with your wife where she released and said everything was going to be okay. You know what I'm saying? So
Thank you, brother.
I just want to say thank you. You know
That
what I'm
means a lot. Thank you, my brother.
I'm sorry.
Appreciate you.
saying? But I did have one question, though.
Sure, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, so my quick question is this, and it's an interesting one, but in the development of being a comprehensive man, how do you, for those that seek acceptance, try to work through that when they feel rejected? Kind of hard,
Let
right?
me make sure I'm understanding your question.
Go ahead.
Are you saying for those who desire to be comprehensive man, how do they work through their desire to be accepted?
Correct. So there's many spaces in life where sometimes you just seeking approval. At work, we seek approval at different places. But sometimes being a comprehensive man, I mean, I think sometimes we're not prepared for that rejection or when someone speaks to you a particular way that makes you want to check yourself.
I got you. I have a saying, I believe I said it in Battle Cry, the most unhappiest people I ever met are those who tried to please everyone. And so a comprehensive man doesn't seek that path because he has already sought healing from those wounds where he had desired that affirmation, where he felt like that affirmation was needed to make him who he was as a man. So for me is, again, why are you doing what you do? So for me, I believe I'm a servant of the Most High sent by him. It is written, I believe it's Galatians 1:10, that Paul says, if I am seeking the approval of man, how can I please Christ? I had to learn the hard way because I grew up without not only the affirmation from my father, but the affection from my mother. Because as a woman, she just lost a son, and here's one that was just being born just 3 years old. She loved me, but she had to guard her heart from the potential possibility of something happening to me. As a result, I never experienced her affection until she developed dementia because she finally was able to forget what she had been through. And that's why I tell people the mind is not meant to hold it. My mother couldn't find peace until she could forget. And so, to answer your question, find out why are you seeking affirmation? Why you feel that that is what's needed to make you whole? It's important, don't get me wrong. One of the few times the Most High spoke in the scriptures is when Christ was being baptized and he came out the water and he said audibly, "This is my son whom I'm well pleased." That's affirmation. We do need it. But at a certain point in your life, if that becomes a crutch, that's a problem. So I always had to figure out why did I need it. And as I would seek out therapy and, of course, through prayer and other people who were in the faith, helped me realize that the affirmation I was longing for from people really wouldn't get me to where I am today. I really needed to know who I was in his eyes. Once I was able to see that, because he created me, so he has the manual. When I saw who I really was to him, it stopped mattering what other people said about me, what they didn't see. Because at the end of the day, majority of people, they're going to come around when you're successful. But when you're failing, they disappear. So what good is it to get affirmation from them? It's like what Solomon says, like chasing after the wind. You'll never get it. So I seek, it's a blessing to have it from my family. A lot of us who do this work, community work, we tend to overextend ourselves where we get the affirmation from the awards, the community servants, and this man has been here and he's done this for this community, but your own home is suffering. I've learned that all of my affirmation on the human plane I receive from my home. That's why if a woman tries to flirt with me, and which rarely happens because of the way I try to carry myself in public, but it's nothing a woman can tell me that my wife hasn't already. And then I know you lying because you don't know me. You know what I mean? And so at the end of the day, for me to receive it and it affect me in a way where the flirting makes me feel a certain way, something in me isn't resolved. And so I'm thankful that, I have the right people around me. My friends affirm me. So it doesn't matter. It may hurt when you get disrespected or dismissed. Reflect on it, release it, and reset, my brother.
Good evening. Hi. I'm right here.
How you doing?
I absolutely loved your book. My name is Cassandra. I'm a social worker, a Christian.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you. A Christian relationship coach and also a men's advocate. So I was reading your book from two lenses. One as a men's advocate, thinking about the men that I serve, and also as a woman. And as a woman, I felt a sense of deep comfort. I felt like he got it, like he gets it. And there's this lingering sensation that has me wondering what would be a complementary match for a comprehensive man as a woman, so that when he shows up, I can win him over with my conduct, not my speech, so that I have victory over my emotions, so that I can esteem him well, given all that he's going through, but in a way that we flow and where there's surrender, but I can also still be firm. I'm Haitian, so submitting is kind of easy, not boule, right? Submitting can be a bit easy, but I also admire Nicole and her firmness and her being able to know when to surrender and when to stand firm. I don't know if that makes sense, so that I'm not like acquiescing.
So you're saying, how does a woman get herself prepared for this comprehensive man when he comes?
Yes, sir.
A call this morning on the radio had prompted a question from one of the co-hosts, and they asked something similar to that. And the first thing I tell women, I call y'all my daughters, is very hard, so I'm speaking to you as a father. I would tell my own daughter this: stop giving males what your husband deserves. So let's start there, because then your worth will be based on giving instead of receiving. And a lot of times when that man comes, same thing with us brothers. We're so hurt by the past relationship that we can miss the one that's directly in front of us that God sent for us. That's why it's so important to release what you've been through. So for that, with women, I'm starting to see a trend now where, especially with black women, I can't say this is exclusively, but just because that's the majority of people I'm around, black women aren't crying anymore. They're not releasing anymore. You feel that you have to be strong and almost stoic. And men, when we lose a black woman's empathy, compassion, unwavering love, it's over. That's when it's over. Nothing, no other reason but that. And we got to realize too as men, and you need to understand this as well, when the Most High said that he gave Adam a helper, it wasn't just someone as a partner to walk with him, but it also meant succor or support, also like a shield and protection. So your worth isn't in just in doing, but also in being. And so when you understand that, and then another key thing that's liberating, if you do get married, your role as a wife is not more important than your role as the daughter of the Most High. When your identity lies in that, you won't be shaken by anything else. Instead, that will shape everything else. But the way you prepare yourself is to heal from your own trauma. Go back and dig, because that's going to resurface. The majority of arguments between couples is not, my brother tell you, Doug, is not 55 or 56-year-old man you're married to. It's the broken boy inside of him that was never healed. Same thing with Nicole. I keep a picture of her in my phone, and I'm going to show all of you this, because this is a time in her life when things were out of control. And I keep this in my wallet. My wallet. This is the new wallet, right? I keep this in my phone as a reminder of that little girl. So whenever we have some conflict, we're not getting along, I look at this little girl and say, I wonder if this is little Nicole rising up that hasn't been healed. And so I tell women to do the same thing with their husbands. So it's so important, because women go through a lot. And let me say this to you, gentlemen. This is deep. I was on Jocko Willing's podcast. I'm really familiar with who he is, right? It's a heavyweight, former Navy SEAL. He asked me and Echo a question. He says, gentlemen, when was the last time you feared for your life? We were like, I remember the time when they tried to carjack me. He says, for women, they can say yesterday. See, when we walk down the street and there's a brother like you, I ain't scared, but she will be. We're not sensitive to that. So for you, you got to understand that fear turns into trauma. You'll be in fight or flight more than you are at peace. So you have to always allow yourself time to process, seek therapy, prayer. Again, I have a faith-based therapist, so it's great. I get the best of both worlds. But seek to heal your little girl so that you can be the woman that man needs. Yeah.
Man, it's been a powerful evening. I apologize for anybody that we didn't get the questions to. It is about 8:30, and I want people to get a chance to get their book signed, take pictures. We can just give it up for Jason, all right? Give it up, yeah. I'm going to stand up, too.
Thank you. It means a lot. Thank you. Thank you for coming out. It really